938 Live. This is Talkback.
Is the chase for higher education creating a chasm between the highly qualified and less schooled women and men in Singapore? Well, we're going by the recent Department of Statistics Population Trends report, and it shows that singlehood rates are the highest among higher educated women and lower educated men in their 30s and 40s. And statistics show that if these growing numbers of singles don't get married eventually, they will only tie the knot when they're much older. 23% of men with university education were single. 35%, though, of men between the ages of 35 and 39 who had secondary education or less were single in 2013. And as they got older, only 14% of men between the ages of 40 and 44 who had degrees remained single. Meanwhile, 28% of men who had secondary education or less stayed single. Let's look at the women now. 26% of them between the ages of 35 and 39 who had a university education were single last year. As they hit their early 40s, about 20% remained single. So, of course, some are saying that there seems to be a bit of a trend here that highly qualified women tend to have a harder time getting married or marrying down.
That's right.
And not so well educated or qualified men also have a harder time getting married. What really is the reality in your life and among your friends? Are we making our choices of life partners based on their paper qualifications, their incomes, and the titles they hold? Is this why perhaps we have a growing number of older singles in Singapore? Give us a call, 669-11938. If you're what is considered a better educated woman, why are you remaining single longer or single altogether? Are you perhaps not willing to marry men who are not as educated as you are? We're also seeing statistics that show that many of our less educated men tend to turn to foreign brides. There were more than 5,000 marriages between Singaporean men and foreign women last year, and many of these brides were from developing countries like Indonesia, Thailand, China, and Vietnam.
Now, the number of women marrying foreign spouses is also going up. There were more than 1,500 marriages involving Singaporean women and foreign grooms last year, and that's nearly double the figure compared to 10 years ago. So, can we separate education and prestige when it comes to looking for a lifelong partner? Give us a call on 669-11938 and tell us what you think. On the line with us is Miss Anissa Hassan. She's a former journalist and now managing director of It's Just Lunch, which is a matchmaking service. Anissa, thank you for joining us. Are Singapore men intimidated by women who are better qualified than they are?
Thank you, Andres. I think security and confidence issues tend to come up when anyone is in the company or circle of someone who's smarter, better qualified, or someone who has higher prestige and position. So the issue facing lower educated men is no different. But not all better educated women are intimidating, and neither are all lower educated men intimidated.
But here's the question: is this a case of just coincidence that the two don't hang out in the same social circles and therefore just don't have a chance to meet each other, or are they consciously making that choice? For instance, when they come to you, I'm sure you give them an interview, or you interview them rather, and you probably want to find out what they're looking for. So is this something they raise as a concern? For instance, does a highly educated woman come and say, you know what, I don't want to be matched with someone who is less educated than I am? Is it that pronounced?
I think it is. There's resistance from the women who have just entered the dating scene and towards the later part of their age, when they have not been so seasoned enough in meeting lots and lots of different men. So there is resistance coming up when they choose or they set out the criteria or the parameters of men that they wish to meet. But as they get themselves more experience in the dating scene, most of them tell me that the reason why their relationships don't work has got nothing to do with the men's academic background. Rather, it's all about how the men make them feel, how safe and secure the men make them feel, and not just financially, but emotionally, physically, and even socially.
Right. Wow. So in other words, they are to a great extent converted, and they tend to open up their horizons, right? What about the men, though? How do the men react?
I think for the first time in 50 years, there's an educational balance that's tilted more towards the women than the men. So So, we will see a more visible trend of having smarter, more well-educated women in our society. And this trend is going to continue. So a shift in attitude and mindset among the men can be expected as well.
Are you already seeing that amongst your clients?
Yes, some men, they know that they can no longer expect to choose or to date, marry lower, to marry lower, and women will also have will have a limited choice to date or marry up. They can see that happening already. So, but in the nature of my job, I see less of men who are lower educated because we are catering for busy professionals only. So it's more prevalent among the women when they come to me and they tell me how difficult it's been because of their education. And that's when we sit down and really hunker down and think through why this is not happening easily for them. And then we realize that it's no longer about the status or the position of the men, rather it's who they're dating, and the traits and the personality and the values that the men have that would make a difference in their dating life or relationship life.
Can you give us an idea, Anissa, of how many Singaporeans, men and women alike, I suppose, looking towards partners abroad?
I'm not clear of the actual number, Andre, but it's apparent that men with lower education are actively seeking out women from overseas, while women are not doing that as much. They may quietly go online just to scour the dating scene, but they have the tendency to stay put, and they seek out their options here among the local or non-local or expat men than to have a clear and distinct goal of marrying foreign bridegroom.
Okay. What usually are the issues that you discuss in a pre-interview, in a pre-dating interview?
It's about the objective, what's where they are and where they want to be in terms of their relationship goals, And I think a lot of them come to me to say that they want to have a choice. They want to have the ability to choose who they're going to marry, because in the past, we had matchmaking services rendered by their parents. So these days, people come to me because they want to make their own personal decision, personal choices as to who they want to be with. So when they come to me, we discuss a lot about dating goals or relationship goals and why it's important for them to meet a certain type of person. And usually the values of the person is what we discuss a lot, whether, this person is family oriented, or is he very driven to the point where, ambition is everything to him. So we do discuss that. And women want to be with men with ambition, with leadership qualities, and but most importantly, to be with a man who makes her feel safe and secure throughout their relationship. Or they want somebody who can make them feel loved, wanted.
What do the men want? What do the men want?
Men want somebody who can be their, who can be their equal, but they are also looking for agreeableness. A lot of women tend to disagree with them,
and they just can't take it. They can't fight back.
Men want respect. Out of everything, I think men want to be respected. So regardless whether...
I think everyone wants to be respected,
Absolutely.
Right? But not everyone wants to be agreed with all the time. Not everyone wants a submissive woman. Because you can have a woman who questions you in a respectful way, right?
Of course. So that's the fine balance that the men are seeking for. To feel that he's the man in that relationship, that he still plays the leadership role, but at the same time, having somebody who can not disagree with him whenever he suggests something or he brings up a certain issue. So there is that fine balance that the men are looking for.
No wonder we're seeing this state of affairs where marriages are slow to take place and people wait a long time. Can't be very easy looking for a spouse if this is how men and women think.
But I think that this challenge can be overcome over a long period of time when both acknowledge the value in building the institution of marriage or a sound relationship, because marriage is not just about a status symbol to be acquired.
Or about having a woman who agrees with you all the way, no matter what you say. We are seeing the proportion of married persons overall falling, though, Anissa. Would you be able to hazard a guess as to why this might be happening?
I think it's because of the fear of not wanting to be in a relationship that's not going to add any value or add any advantage to their lives. So why bother? Why go through the hassle of being vulnerable or being put in a very in a relationship that they don't know what the outcome is going to be in the long term. So a lot of people want to be in a relationship, in marriage, but they don't know how to sustain it. So sometimes they feel that the best way is to just stay put as to where they are and just be happy where they are at.
And of course, the people who come to you don't feel that way, which is why they are searching for a partner. Thank you for joining us, Anisa. Anisa Hassan, Managing Director of It's Just Lunch. It's a matchmaking service for busy professionals. So do bear in mind, Anisa is coming from that place where her clientele is made up of busy professionals, not totally representative of all of Singapore, but useful insights anyway, for sure. Thank you very much, Anisa. Stay with us on 938 Live. Talkback continues in just a moment. Are we making our choices of life partners based on paper qualifications, on their income, the titles they hold? The recent Department of Statistics Population Trends report shows that singlehood rates are the highest among highly educated women and lowly educated men in their 30s and 40s. Is this a fair conclusion to come to, that people are being rather discerning, or maybe overly discerning, based on someone's qualifications, on their prospective partner's qualifications? We're joined now by Associate Professor Pauline Tay Strawn. She's Vice Dean of the Faculty of Arts and Social Sciences and Deputy Head of the Department of Sociology at the National University of Singapore. Pauline, good morning. Now,
hi, good morning.
You've seen the numbers. What conclusions do you think we can come to safely based on the numbers?
Well, first of all, these trends are nothing new. I think that, an increase in proportion of singlehood is inevitable when you look at modern societies. Young people just have a lot of different options going for them, and marriage is one of the many attractive options. So I think that, it's not too fair to say that, young Singaporeans are getting too fussy or too picky and so forth, but it is just an inevitable outcome of the busyness of modern daily living.
So you're saying they are not being, a little bit fussy at all?
I don't think that would be a fair comment. I think that the fact that we are seeing these trends suggests that, for example, for young men and women who are pursuing further education, skills enhancement, and so forth, it is really very difficult to continue to focus full time, for example, on university education, and at the same time concurrently pursue marriage. Especially when the meaning of marriage has changed, right? You don't just marry the first single person you see.
Sure.
You want to make sure that whoever you chooses you are both compatible, because you both value marriage as a lifelong commitment. And that takes a lot of work.
And of course, there could be so many other reasons for this. It could just be that highly educated women are not hanging out in the same circles as the not-so-educated men, so on and so forth, wouldn't you say?
Well, you see, education is an easy tag to classify others, to classify like-minded people. But if you look more deeply at what education means, it is more than just a qualification. It is a homogamy of shared attitudes, values, and opinions. So if you look at modern marriages, where it is a union of two like-minded individuals with shared dreams and aspirations, then it is, quite common to find that people would tend to marry others with similar education qualifications, because education facilitates shared values, right? So it's not so much being picky, but rather, this is just a pragmatic outcome.
Tell us what you think. 669-11938. Is this how things have turned out for you as well? Have you ended up marrying up, down in terms of education? What about income levels, so on and so forth? How can we fix this situation where the proportion of married people actually fell last year as well? Our total fertility rate also lower. Stay with us on 938 Live. Going to be talking about all these issues right after news and sports.
Is the chase for higher education creating a chasm between the highly qualified and less schooled women and men in Singapore? And are women less willing to marry men who are not as educated as they are? can we separate education, income, and even prestige, possibly, when it comes to looking for a life partner? Joining us right now is Associate Professor Pauline Tay Strawn. She is Vice Dean of the Faculty of Arts and Social Sciences and Deputy Head of the Department of Sociology at the National University of Singapore.
Let's take a look at what you've been saying on Facebook first, though. Official 938 Live. David says, I'm always getting feedback from my staff telling me that their wives would compare their salaries with either their friends' husbands or at times even against their own salary.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so that's one thing. Salary is an issue for some people anyway. Gary Ang says it will be difficult to get past all this as society still feels that the husband should be the breadwinner and thus should earn more than the wife. Of course, not everyone, I think, thinks this way, but I'm pretty sure that some husbands feel that way. Some women feel that way as well. So you end up choosing partners based on that. Or do you? Call us on 669-11938. Pauline, earlier you mentioned how education means much more than just your paper qualifications. It's a value system, the way you think, so on and so forth. That's what education signifies. However, now that, in our society, we're talking about, breaking down barriers, everyone should be looked at beyond their paper qualifications, so on and so forth. To what extent do you think society can be more accepting of people from diverse backgrounds and therefore get to know people of diverse backgrounds and actually marry up, down? It doesn't matter which way.
Well, the group with very low education, in time to come, these will be legacy cases, right? Because Singapore has progressed tremendously at a tremendous rate, and we're beginning to see homogenization along educational outcomes. So, when you look at the mismatch in educational qualifications, the extreme ends are not going to be persistently present in our society in the near future, right? So I think it's more, important for us to then look at, even among people who have similar backgrounds, and I'm talking about maybe tertiary education, polytechnic, and so on, right? What are the barriers, right, that continue to stand in the way of young people getting together and forging lifelong unions? I think it's beyond just being picky about educational qualification when you talk about that group, because the distance is not as great anymore. Yeah.
So what do you think it is? What are the contributing factors? We've been grappling with this problem for many years. The proportion of merit persons overall has fallen as well now.
I think it's contesting life goals, right? Because we have two parallels that are trying to center themselves in a young person's aspirations. The first, of course, is doing well in one's career, right? And the second is doing well in one's marriage or lifelong relationship. So unlike in the past where, we are just told, just get married to a most appropriate person, because after all, it is part of the life cycle. It's a natural process, right? In contemporary society, marriage takes on very different meanings. It takes on this higher value add, perspectives where you find the right person who would share your aspirations, share your life goals, and then you grow old together, building a life together. So given this is the kind of high stake we have attributed to modern marriages, we also are more cautious when we seek out this life partner.
Right.
So you have, two enterprises which requires your 100% commitment.
And can you
do one or the other most times?
Yeah. And can you commit to both?
That's right.
Stay with us on 938 Live. Let's hear from Mrs. Lim now. Hi, Mrs. Lim. Good morning.
Yeah. Hi. Good morning. Yeah, I missed a little bit the part earlier on, but I just want to share that just like the guest has spoken, marriage is never easy, and you can't have two CEO in a house. Okay, in our religion, Christianity, we are asked to be submissive, but we don't just follow blindly, because really there's a wisdom in that. So the men, we usually give them the respect and for making the major decision, and the wife, we usually have to do the supporting role, although we still supporting financially. So it's never easy, and when the day you start to ready to think of having a family and share your life and grow old together with someone you love, you need to sacrifice.
Right. Right.
You need to give.
Okay,
you
so
need
this
to
is-
just think of giving and not taking.
Okay,
And
I'm
then
glad you
if-
see it that way. And of course, I'm sure you're married with that attitude because earlier, one of our guests, Anisa Hassan, who is with a dating agency, it's Just Lunch. In fact, she is its managing director, said that's what men are looking for, submissive women. And Mrs. Lim claims her religion actually espouses that view as well. So, okay.
Not quite. Not
Okay,
quite.
to each his own, I say. To each his own, I say. And which is why we're not all the same.
I don't
And you have to work towards finding someone who can appreciate your own values as well. Those are Mrs. Lim's values. She's entitled to them. And if you have different values, I'm sure you too have had the chance to meet someone who would respect your values.
Sure.
If you're not the submissive woman too. Pauline, let's talk about the larger issues here. You said that clearly competing life goals
Yes.
have contributed to our low marriage rate. But we are in an aging population.
Yes.
It has been pointed many times that we need our total fertility rate to go up. The government has made many moves in terms of trying to encourage people to get married. We've seen baby bonuses. We've seen a lot of marriage benefits as well in the marriage and parenthood package. What more do you think can be done in terms of changing the external factors in order to prod individuals to make such a personal life decision?
I think that at some point we need to, we have always allowed market forces to dominate our everyday lives, right? Because we are, a capitalist economy, and therefore, supply and demand, market sentiments, all those are very important. But embedded in this very, very fast-paced kind of growth is competition, right? We are a very competitive society, and I think that is perhaps, one of the strongest things that stand in the way of family formation. Because if you think of a young person's trajectory when they're in their 20s, that's precisely when we hope they will be able to take some time out to seek out a life partner and then start to invest in family. But at that time, unfortunately, that's also when they've just completed investment in formal education and skills enhancement, and that is when the competition really starts, right? I always tell my students, university is nothing, okay?
Absolutely.
Wait till you go out to the real world where you're not cocooned, right? So this is a very high stress period of a young person's life, in their 20s, in their late 20s, in their early 30s. That's when they perceive of, a very unforgiving, market, right? Where either you make it then, or you have to then, for the rest of your life, explain why you didn't catch up, with the rest.
Yeah.
So I think that at some point we need to address this, and perhaps an important starting point is how we reward employees, right? We have a performance-based evaluation system. If you think about that system carefully, it is a system that puts in place an annual race.
Yep.
In that race, there is only one winner. Or rather, one small group, right?
Yep.
So if you think about it very carefully, and if each of us reflect on how we plan our careers, right, it is on a year-on-year basis where we are continuously trying to make sure that we do not slack, so that we will be ahead, not just, on par with our own perspective of our development phase, but, that we'll be ahead of our peers in the office.
Right. Indeed, only a few can get promoted, and you have to be the one to
That's right.
to be offered that promotion. So how do you think all of these issues can be rethought, reconfigured, in order to encourage a culture of perhaps a more balanced life, people actually getting married one of their priorities and life goals, rather than, just, it's a nice to have?
Well, I think we have to continue to reposition the importance of marriage and family formation in a larger scale. And we're still looking at it as, handling it with kids' glove, and always mindful that these are private decisions. So, while we encourage and prod at the side, we seldom, give it the spotlight that it deserves. At the end of the day, if you look at this carefully, it is a national concern, right?
Yeah,
especially
it is.
for a place like Singapore, where we only have manpower. So I think we need to put all that in perspective, and I think we have to seriously be willing to take some risk when it comes to mapping out what Singapore should be.
What type of risks would you recommend?
I think one would be to relook again, at how we reward people in the workplace. I think that is the singular one thing that puts a lot of stresses on young Singaporeans.
Do you think there should be a national policy on this?
I think we have to be brave enough to relook at the reward system, right? And of course, this will come at the risk of putting ourselves, as the market watchers would warn, right? That we may become less competitive.
Yeah.
All right. If we have too many restrictions on hours worked, etc., etc. But at the end of the day, what is more important for us? We need a more balanced approach. So that, because right now we're tilting towards one side, right, and we can see the effects of that.
So what happens in the boardroom affects what happens in the bedroom.
Oh, what bedroom? Sometimes there's no bedroom. Okay?
Yeah, there's no bedroom to speak of.
Oh dear.
Andre is married, you see, so he can't relate to the rest of us singles. But thank you very much, Professor Pauline Tay-Strawn, Vice Dean and of the Faculty of Arts and Social Sciences. She's also Deputy Head of the Department of Sociology at the National University of Singapore. If you've got more to say about this, please talk to us on Facebook. Some of you have already left some comments there. Yu Zhou says, education, income and social status determine one's lifestyle and what one pursues in life. So these things tend to matter. In the Eastern culture, Yu Zhou says that guys normally do have a bigger ego and it will be hard for them to constantly bow to their wives. Again, going back to some of the assumptions, and I must stress these are assumptions that we have made, that men will not marry someone who is more highly educated than he or she. Than he is in this case. For one thing, at least,
I would rather a woman who would be able to argue with me rationally and, just not say yes to everything that I say.
I think some of our callers today have equated being submissive with being respectful. And I disagree. I think that you can disagree with someone and yet respect them.
Yeah,
be respectful while you're doing it. Mrs. Lim, of course, called in earlier to say her religion espouses that women be submissive. Of course, to each his own. If you want to dispute that, talk to us as well. Official 938 Live is our Facebook page. We look forward to all your comments today.